Greetings. I'd like to spend a few moments just going over a few things from Chapter 4, Rational Choice Theory. First, let me go ahead and mention that rational choice theory focuses on the decision, the rational decision to break the law. And there may be a variety of reasons, but the whole idea here is that people make rational choices to engage in criminal and or deviant behavior. Your author does an excellent job tracing the development and the history of rational choice theory. And again, I think that's relevant to look at how those changes have occurred and have taken place, and of course how science is used to address some of the changes in how we think about crime and punishment. Uh, you see a lot about Cesare Beccaria, who really looked at the whole idea of rational choice in the sense that he believed that people choose all of their behaviors, including criminal type behaviors. And similar to Sigmund Freud, he believed that people tend to choose behaviors that bring them pleasure and reduce pain or discomfort. And the way that we can control those criminal choices is through fear of punishment. And in addition, Beccaria pointed out the astute observation that when we look at controlling criminal behavior, we need to look at first that punishment is severe, second, it is certain, and third, it is swift. So severe, certain, and swift in order to control crime. But he also believed that the punishment must be proportional to the seriousness of the crime. Because remember, the belief here is that we have rational actors making rational decisions based on the knowledge that they have. And under this whole idea, which has become known as classical criminology, is the notion that people have free will and they commit crimes because of the benefits to them, and they make choices based on the decision-making process of weighing rewards and punishments. Now, I want you to think for a moment about that whole notion of free will. What exactly is free will? Does free will mean that we have no constraints, that we can do whatever we want, and we choose to do certain things and we choose to avoid others? For example, I just ate a few more chocolate chip cookies than I had planned. Well, what happened? Did I lose my free will, or did I have free will to say, you know what? Forget 3 chocolate chip cookies, I'll have 6. Or what happened in that thought process? Just like if you remember that commercial where they say, no one can eat 1 of these potato chips. In other words, the commercial saying you don't have free will. You're going to eat more potato chips than 1. It's impossible to only eat 1. They're so tasty and good. Now, I've tested that, and I ate 1. And I tested that on several bags of potato chips, and I was able to eat 1. So I think that's just a comical, nonsense commercial trying to play around with the concept of free will. But when we apply that to criminal activity, you can see kind of where they're going with that. Think about, for example, drug addiction, gambling addiction, sex addiction, alcohol addiction, even, let's say, nicotine or caffeine dependence. Do we have free will to say, I'm going to stop this behavior, I'm not going to gamble, I'm not going to smoke, I'm not going to drink coffee, or I'm going to regulate the intake of my coffee? And is it possible that the whole idea of free will is enmeshed now in new science using MRIs and brain scanning, and the whole idea of, well, which comes first? Do we have a rational thought process and then we do something, or do we do something and then try to evaluate or think about it? Do we do things unconsciously? Let me give you an example. Many times people misspeak. especially around elections, people misspeaking right and left. I think I just misspoke. But when people misspeak, they say, oh, I misspoke. Well, there's also that whole idea is that sometimes that people, maybe you've done this, maybe never, that you said something you wish you didn't. You say, ooh, I need to take that back, or you hope they didn't hear, or you think, why in the world did I say that? It just came out. Certainly that hasn't happened to me in the last 7 or 8 hours that I can recall, but it happens all the time. I believe it does, and I believe part of that gets to the whole idea, well, how much constraints do we have? What is this whole idea of free will? Is it depend or contingent on other factors? For example, is free will related to socioeconomic status or education or home life? Or IQ, or if there's certain illnesses or mental disorders, how does that play into the scheme of things? And this is going to become, I think, more important as we get into biobehavioral understandings of criminal behavior. So there has been an interest for many years in this classical criminology approach, and trying to figure out how we could prevent crime. And what we have are different ideas that relate to things. For example, the Seductions of Crime. The work by Professor Jack Katz looks at that there's an excitement factor to crime. There's adrenaline rush. There's a move toward the criminal activity. It's exciting. There's some payoffs there of a variety of kind that we have to consider. And we also need to consider, for example, impulse control and how that relates to free will. Think about someone's driving down the road. If you ever seen, for example, the other day I was going to make a left turn, and I was at a stop sign, and a car was going to make a left, kind of around me, and I was a little bit maybe. I was at the stop sign, but the car had to go around me, and it was this, very, nice car with a prim, proper, dressed person sitting at that steering wheel, and when she turned, she mouthed such curse words at me. I was amazed. Now, she didn't yell them. You may not know this, but I'm 70% deaf in one ear, 80% in the other, and I wear hearing aids. So over the years, I've become quite adept at reading lips. She wasn't happy. And I'm thinking, well, okay, what if she said that if our windows were down? What if she said that if we were walking and or if she stopped for some reason at a stoplight and our windows were down, would she have said those terrible, awful curse words at me? Or did she say that, was it an impulsive, was it out of her control? Does it just come out of her mouth? Like, oh, that guy's a little bit in my way and I'm in a rush, and quite interesting. So if we think about this whole idea and we get into looking at different aspects of prevention, we have some different views. But if we think that crime is rational, and your author asks, is theft rational? Is drug use rational? Is violence rational? How do people make the decisions, for example? A lot of rational thought process and planning may go into crimes. Certainly we've seen very elaborate criminal schemes, especially some recently that have come to our attention that involve taxes and fraud and banking related crimes and the like. These are very sophisticated, well planned out, long-term criminal activities. I was just reviewing several that occurred in a major corporation in my community, and it's been going on for years and years and years, and they're even looking back, they're surprised that no one knew it was going on, but obviously the perpetrators made a decision to carry out this long-term theft of information without worrying about, or I'm sorry, obviously they could worry about being caught, but they were erring on the judgment that they would not get caught. Sorry, I was distracted there. Someone was lighting firecrackers somewhere nearby. They made a rational decision to do that. If we look at the idea of reducing or preventing or eliminating crime, we look at the whole idea of make crime not worth the effort to do, bring in painful aspects of consequences for the criminal activity, remove the rewards the best we can, and make it a tough, poor choice. And so we get into situational crime prevention, that we want to, for example, reduce a specific crime problem. Your author points out we may increase the efforts to commit the crime, reduce the rewards of the criminal activity, increase the risk, increase the shame, and remove the excuses the offender might have. And so these are just a few ideas. And then your author points out several case studies and research findings of some major studies about how these models can be applied. And this wraps up this video. Good day or good night.